Hello, my name is NJ Franco, and these are my thoughts on Star Wars The Dark Disciple by Christie Golden. So, first off, this review will contain some spoilers, but don't worry, I'll be sure to save those spoilers for the end of the video, and I'll also give you plenty of warning before I get to them, so don't you worry about that. So, basically, this book is supposed to be based off of an episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars that never got produced for one reason or another. But the basic story is the Jedi Council is pretty much fed up with Count Dooku, so they get the idea to have Jedi Master Quinlan Vos team up with Asajj Ventress to go on an assassination mission against Count Dooku. Here's the problem with that, though. Anyone who's seen Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, which, let's be honest, that movie came out in 2005, that was 20 years ago, so if you haven't seen it yet, where the heck have you been? But everyone knows that Count Dooku is killed by Anakin Skywalker in Revenge of the Sith. He has his hands are cut off, and then Anakin uses his own lightsaber and Count Dooku's lightsaber to do like a scissor move and cut his head off. So we all know that is officially how Count Dooku dies. So when it comes to this book, even if you haven't read it, because we all know when Count Dooku dies and how he dies, you know that this mission is going to end in failure, okay? And before anyone gets mad that's, about that being a spoiler, like I said, if you've seen Revenge of the Sith, you already know that this mission is going to be a failure, but still a good read regardless. But wanted to get that out of the way. Now, another thing about this book, especially if you read the back description of it, there is a bit of a romance between Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress. They were meant to team up together, for this mission, like I said originally, but they started to get feelings for each other and whatnot. So if you're not interested in romance, or you're not interested in Star Wars romance, or you just can't, imagine Quinlan Vos and Ventress together, whatever the case may be, if you're not interested in that kind of romance, be fair warned, this book might not be for you. But the back of the book does clearly state there is a bit of romance in here, so if it's not for you, might want to give this book a pass. Nothing wrong with that. So now on to my actual thoughts on the story. So first off, my biggest complaint is the pacing, okay? So the story was really quick to kind of get the mission started. So the first chapter, there's this battle that goes on, and then chapter 2, Boss receives his mission, and then chapter 3, he starts to carry out his mission. But after that, at least in my opinion, I feel like the pacing of the book just really slows down, okay? Because he teams up with Ventress, and he basically becomes a bounty hunter, because that's what she basically is at this point in the story. She's a bounty hunter, so he teams up with her, becomes her partner, her bounty hunter partner, and they do all these bounty hunter missions, which I'm kind of conflicted on how I feel about this part of the story, because one, I really liked reading all about the daily lives of a bounty hunter, basically, and I, to such an extent, that I actually kind of want to now read more Star Wars books about bounty hunters, okay? So I liked it that this small section of the book was about bounty hunters, but at the same time, I feel like it detracted from the story too much, okay? I kind of understand, Voss needed to gain her trust and do some missions with her before he could jump the whole, hey, let's go assassinate your old boss, but I feel like for the sake of the plot, the book went into too much detail and didn't need to cover each of the missions. Could have just been like, oh yeah, so Voss was on these missions with her. Here's what some of they were, a bit of synopsis of some, not go step by step, showing what all these 5 or 6 missions were like. I like that. I like reading it, but I also feel like it detracted from the story too much. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm like I said, that's this section of the story. I'm very conflicted as to how I feel about it. So fortunately, after the whole bounty hunter section, which I liked, but at the same time, the pacing did pick up again. Eventually Voss did convince Ventress to be like, hey, let's go assassinate your old boss, and she's like, all right, bet, let's do it. And there's some training. She's like, you're not ready to fight him yet, so we're gonna do some training. So there's some training in there, and then eventually they set up to do the mission and make an attempt to assassinate Count Dooku, because like I said, we all know that the mission was going to fail. I knew before I started reading this book, because again, we all know how Count Dooku dies, and then we all know it's not in this book. So, but so that they do the mission, and then there's a bunch of stuff that happens after the mission, which I'm not going to go into because that's spoilers and whatnot. But the pacing did pick up eventually. I just feel like that one little section, after the first few chapters, slowed down a little bit, but like I said, I liked it, but at the same time, I'm conflicted. But moving on. All right, so the last thing I want to say before I get into the spoiler section of this review is, like I said, this is based off of an episode of the Clone Wars that they didn't produce for one reason or another, but I kind of wish now that they had, mostly because I kind of wanted to see more of Quinlan Vos, in the Clone Wars. Now that I read this, and I kind of vaguely remembered who Quinlan Vos was because I have seen all the episodes of the Clone Wars. I kind of wanted to see more of him after reading this because he's only in like one or two episodes, so I barely remember him. But after reading this, I'm kind of like, I want more. I'm starting to like this guy as a character, so I want to see more episodes with him. So I kind of wish they had made this episode or episodes, because honestly, with a book this thick, this would have been like 3 or 4 episodes, honestly. But I kind of wish they had done it because I wanted to see more Quinlan Vos. He was one interesting Jedi that they didn't really show that much in the show, and they should have. They should have had more Quinlan Vos. Anyway, so that's it for all my non-spoilers. So I'm going to try to do my best to give fair warning and whatnot that, hey, spoilers. We're getting into the spoiler section, okay? So if you don't want spoilers, go ahead and click off the video now. You're not going to hurt my feelings, okay? But everything from here on out will be a spoiler. Okay, so if you are watching this part of the video, I can only assume that you've already read the book and that you just want to know what my thoughts on are. So, Ventress, had to have Vos dabble in the dark side of the Force for him to be ready to kill Count Dooku and whatever, or attempt to kill Count Dooku or whatever, okay? And I get that, but my issue is with Anakin Skywalker, because as soon as he found out that Vos had dabbled in the dark side a little bit, he got all like he didn't verbally like say anything that I remember, but he was very like gave a lot of judgy eyes towards Vos, like how dare you dabble in the dark side, right? And the whole time I'm kind of like, Anakin, look, we all know damn well who you turn into at the end of all this, okay? And also, this book, I'm pretty sure, takes place towards the end of the Clone Wars, okay? And like I said, I've seen every episode of the Clone Wars. I distinctly remember there being several instances where Anakin used the Sith power of Force Choke, okay? He Force choked a bunch of people, okay? So he had been dabbling in the dark side himself by the time, this part of the story happens, okay? So, Anakin, you sit the hell down and don't act like you don't have your own skeletons in your own closet, okay? Now, next, I was considering mentioning how Ventress dies in this book, but then she shows up in the Bad Batch, which takes place after this and whatnot, but I figure, I'm not the first one to mention that, and it's been done to death, but just know that I am a little slightly irked by that, but I get it, and just moving on. Now, the last thing I want to mention about this book is I don't think they should have let Vos go or off the hook, okay? Because he killed a bunch of people and he did all these horrible things and whatnot. And while I don't think they should have, executed him, I think that he should have spent life in prison or something like that. He shouldn't have been left the hook and been let to be a Jedi again and do missions again and stuff like that. Even if it was a very slow baby step process, I don't think that they should have let him be a Jedi anymore. I'm sorry, I like Vos, but given his crimes and whatnot and the people that died because of him, he probably should have spent the rest of his life in Jedi prison, not execution. I don't think he should have been killed, but he should have spent the rest of his life in prison. But that's just me. Anyway, so those are all my thoughts on this book. I did enjoy it. This is the second Star Wars book I ever read. The first one was Ahsoka. So if anyone has any Star Wars books recommendations, because I definitely would like to read more, again, especially ones about bounty hunters right now. I'm in a bounty hunter kind of mood. Please, drop your recommendations down below in the comment section. But anyway, that's it for me. And as always, thank you for watching.